Oh, good mate. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, man?
We're going to talk about what? What's that? It's
Hey,
the size of a battleship.
Let's go down to the movies. Let's go out tonight. Lightsabers flash and movies flash at the movies tonight. Screwhead and Avon, everybody come along. Grab some popcorn and your 3D goggles at the movies tonight.
So tonight we are bringing you another movie in our failed experiment, which is Screwhead AF movie night. No, I don't think so. I love our movie night thing.
Yeah.
But tonight I am bringing you. But I genuinely think that me and you are the only ones entertained. But that's okay.
No, I only watch them once when I'm editing the audio, so I wouldn't watch it again. It's nonsense.
It's not.
And I was here.
All right, so tonight I've forced Avon to watch one of my favorite giant monster movies, The Giant Claw. The Giant Claw. Now, this movie, before I go into the plot, I'm going to tell you why I like this movie. All right, and this is going to probably surprise you why this movie entertained me so much. Because and I've watched a lot of giant monster movies, right? But there is such a difference between the Japanese giant monsters and the American giant monsters, right? The Japanese giant monsters, they're always kind of like the same. There's some sort of human hubris, right, that generates or resurrects or brings back the giant monster. And then the only way that for society to beat him is to join together, team up, put all the minds together, and fight the monster. I mean, eventually they also have to seek the help of another giant monster to beat the giant monster, but it's always about like humanity coming together to fight, right?
Eventually they form Voltron, and yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But and I'm getting a little long-winded here, but I'm going to still continue. But in the U.S., there was this kind of concept of like the monsters would just show up. There was never any like human hubris at all. They would just be there, right? They'd just be like, oh, look, giant mantis, and then and even if there was some sort of human hubris that created the thing, that was never leaned on as part of the storyline. That was just the origin for the monster. And then it was always
that, or it was a Russian plot, or it was something.
Right.
And there was always some old guy who'd go, I warned you this would happen.
Right.
I told you, don't mess with things you didn't understand. You shouldn't have poked that thing. Yeah, that guy.
And it would always come down to the fact that it was like, and in American movies, it was always like, well, you know what we got to do? We got to kill it.
Go get it.
We got to kill it with our mighty military might.
I'm going to call the army. That's what I pay my taxes for. Army, gonna kill it.
Army's going to come.
No,
there's always one guy that seems to have all the answers. But that was kind of like a lot of the giant monster movies from America, right? And all of that
was also what the giant monster movies from Japan that were edited to be played in America looked like as well.
Right.
To be completely transparent. Godzilla. Yeah.
God bless the Americans for being there to save the day. Nothing would have been saved without, America. So, I mean, and I think a lot of that is perfectly encapsulated in the glory, which is the giant claw.
Yeah, I agree. Yep, I liked this film. I think I like a monster film, but some of your films are terrible. I enjoyed this film. I enjoyed this film.
So the basic plot of the movie is that, science is occurring in the North Pole. They're developing radar, and they're test flying their ships around, and the radar is pinging them. And then all of a sudden, the dude sees a giant flying battleship, which still to this day I don't understand why it's a battleship, but we're not going to go into that right now.
Oh, I've got notes. I have notes.
Right? But that giant battleship is not able to be seen on radar, so they don't believe the pilot. So now the pilot goes on this desperate quest to prove that there's some sort of giant monster flying around the skies of America and taking down jets. Trying to convince the military, trying to convince all of the people of the world. And then it eventually ends up being a giant flying bird from space.
Which looks like a vulture for anyone who's not... We'll put a picture up, but yeah.
I kind of don't even want to ruin the monster because I want people to see, like, in just...
Oh, okay. Then I'll just drop audio on that bit. That would have happened already, so me in the future will drop the audio on that. Looks like a...
But you're right. It looks like a giant... screw it. We'll just go...
Shout out to our hearing impaired lip reading people. It's one for you.
But no, so and then of course they have to come together with science.
The intro of the film has a War of the Worlds-esque monologue where they're talking about the radar and everything. It's really good. Like, it's got that typical radio voice, American-sounding radio voice guy talking about the new technology. Technology has made the world a smaller place. And he specifically talks about radar that can detect carrier pigeons. After all this technology talk, he's going, oh yes, I know, radar can detect carrier pigeons. Seems oddly specific for a giant monster bird film, but...
Dish is turning!
Whatever. In my notes I've made here that I'm pretending not to look at, I just wrote, Americans will use anything other than the metric system. Because the first guy who spots this thing goes, oh, it's the size of a battleship. And then other people who are completely unconnected to him and weren't part of that interaction say, it's the size of a battleship. And I'm like, what? That's just... I mean, is it... Just so I understand, is it 3 frigates to a battleship or 2 destroyers to a... How many battleships in an aircraft carrier?
It's foot, yards, battleship.
Battleship. That's so strange. Speaking as an Australian, I got really lost in the terminology, but I muddled through.
Just gibberish. Just complete gibberish. Half of the movie was just like, science!
Science! And there was a lot of films of that that are fantastic, that really did pave the way for modern technobabble, and this is no exception.
This one is one of them.
That whole scene on the plane with the awkward kiss and the baseball dialogue backwards and forwards, her line delivery is fantastic.
Who's on first?
Yeah, that whole bit. Yeah. Her line delivery is excellent. She was, as far as I'm concerned, stand out for the film. She's still alive. She's 94 now. She was in a whole bunch of films even recently. Sudden Impact. Whole heap of monster films back in the day. Versus 1957.
All right.
She was in I wrote them down. She was in The Gauntlet, Sudden Impact, Pink Cadillac, The Rookie, as far as some of her later films. But she's still around. Yeah.
So
the guy Jeff Morrow, he's long dead.
Yeah, well, he was like 85 in that. That was another problematic scene, but it was fine.
He also did. He was an ex-radio personality, so hence his voice. And he then moved into sci-fi and did a whole bunch of sci-fis around that era, like Kronos and stuff like that. So he's in anything that's got like a big monster on the poster with lights coming out of its eyes. He was kind of in that. This Island Earth, I wrote down. The Creature Walks Among Us. Oh yeah, and Kronos. So yeah, he did the radio play for Dick Tracy. He was Dick Tracy in that. So he's got the radio voice.
But we haven't even gotten to the insanity, which is the giant claw itself.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of nonsense that goes on. Planes disappearing. Oh, we don't believe you because it's not showing up on radar. I don't.
The battleship isn't showing up on radar.
Right. I would call that filler for an hour and a half movie. Like, it's got a nice 20-minute interesting filler section. But then finally, there's some guys flying in the classic jet of the day, which is kind of like this thing, right? And it's got the three scientists sitting in the back of the plane with their parachutes.
Oh, that one. So I think I meant the fighter jets. Yeah.
Right, and then they've got the papers which aren't moving.
Yeah.
And anyway, the giant claw finally makes his appearance for the first time, and you're like, oh, it's going to be scary.
Something's going to happen.
And something's going to happen. And the the giant claw attacks the plane, and they all jump out, and they parachute, and then
and when you say giant claw attacks the plane, the camera wobbles a bit, and some lights flicker, and everyone goes, "Oh!"
And then the giant claw proceeds to eat everybody. All the parachutes one by one. But when you first see the giant claw and the strings hanging from the giant claw, it's flying around.
Which I don't know that you would see on a beta or VHS tape. You probably would have seen it in the cinema. You definitely saw it on the Blu-ray version. But on any other sub-quality format, you probably wouldn't have seen them so much.
But this thing is maybe the most horrifying monster I have ever seen.
Huge. It's huge.
And it's terrible. And it's not terrifying in a, like, scary way. It's terrifying in, like, when you were a kid, that was the monster that would come out of your closet because it's just so bad with the hair and the beak and the teeth
and the eyes
and the noise it makes.
The noise it makes, for anyone interested, is it's got two noises. One is possibly it makes a noise which starts off as one noise and then becomes another noise. They're two different sound bites. The second noise is possibly a male peacock. I can't work it out. But the first noise, local to me, is the sound a kookaburra makes, which is one of our national birds, at the start of the giant... When a kookaburra makes its laughing sound, it has this little warm-up. It's like noise, and it's that. They just sampled that from some old archive footage. And it's instantly recognizable to anyone who lives here. Because you hear it every freaking morning. It's like, the giant claw's outside. Just made a heading that said, everyone flies. From the very start, from the very first character, he said, there's something in the sky destroying planes. The first thing someone says is, I'm going to get on a plane to Washington or wherever they're going. And everyone gets on a plane. Plane gets attacked. People die, whatever. And then they again get on a plane. No one flies anywhere else. They get on a plane or a helicopter because apparently there's absolutely no ground transport in this reality. We're all going to get into the sky with the flying battleship bird.
Well, at that point, no one believed there was an actual flying battleship.
No, this is through the whole film. They were helicoptering towards him at the end.
It's true.
In the intro, in the War of the Worlds intro, they specifically say, and the world is more and more connected at the push of a button. You could have just made a phone call. You could have pushed that button and gone, Washington, we're not coming because flying's dangerous. Let's have a chat. Let's have a chat. Everyone flies. This is the same trope of, like, it's a shark film, therefore we've got to work out some way for everyone to be in the water because
the water there's a tornado. All the time.
Yeah, everyone's got to always be in the water and no one can swim all of a sudden.
Why does my phone not work in this cabin in the woods? It's the same shit. They gotta fly back. So they're flying, and her and there's another pilot for some reason. And so the giant claw attacks, and the pilot just, I don't know, dies of... I honestly, the plane gets the most gentle jarring, and then he immediately is like, he does that 1950s where he's like, and dies. And
his heart goes out. There's a delicate soul.
Seems tender. And they land in Canada, and they go to Pierre's cabin.
Yes.
Yeah, the Frenchman. Who is, by the way, the sweetest man.
Let's just mention this is the second film where a plane goes off course and ends in Canada. You've got me to watch. Right, please continue.
It's true. But so he goes to the sweetest man in the world, Pierre. He takes him right in. He takes care of him. And then Pierre walks outside, and then the giant claw,
yeah,
right. And he comes in and he says some monster's name that he just saw, and he's going to die. And they're like, Pierre, you're crazy. Like after they had just spent like 20 minutes like talking to Pierre about the giant monster they had just seen.
He walks outside, sees giant monster, and then but he came inside with a crazy story because foreigners have crazy beliefs. And he's like, "Oh yes, it is the beast from whatever. Now I have seen the beast. It means I will die." It's like they just like blow him off. It's like, yeah, whatever, Pierre. You
It
believe
was
whatever
just the
crazy shit your culture believes. I must admit, he's French, but I didn't use my brain to think he's French-Canadian. He's not French-French. I mean, he's French-French, but he's French-Canadian. He's not French in France. French in France. French. Oh, God.
He's French-Canadian.
Yes. My favorite line in the whole film that I've written down on this piece of paper, probably more information than you needed, is they take refuge in his farmhouse. They start knocking back long necks, and that is drinking beers. I'm not sure if that's a cultural thing anywhere else. And his phone rings, and he shuffles over to the phone, and he says, "Oi, this is the farmer, Pierre Besser." Like, you have to announce yourself as a farmer. Like, "Hi, I am the guy who runs a website, Avon."
Wait, they get another ride back to wherever the hell they're going. There was like Washington, and of course, like the trope of the whole movie is that like anytime they go somewhere and like anytime a character says anything about anything, the character who is also in the room is going to go, "No, you're insane."
Yeah.
I mean, it is literally about anything.
Yeah.
The guy's like, "Oh, look, I found a pattern. It's flying in a circle." And the character's
oh,
like,
gosh.
"Oh, don't you think that's jumping to conclusions?"
It's the Dana Scully thing. Sees a vampire. No, Mulder. It's literally possessed by a ghost for a whole episode. No. But like Scully, they are there to be the audience, to try and not have the audience jump ahead so far to the obvious ending to the thing.
Right. So I mean, I love that throughout the whole movie. Like, no. But then finally, the military tries to. The bird shows up, and he's in the film all the time, and the military's got to like shoot the bird down, and of course it doesn't work because why would it?
That's right. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that's right. Are we talking about why that shoots the... I mean, this whole ending, we got so technical. For a stupid monster film. I know. Do we talk about that? Do you want to spoil it? Let's just put a spoiler.
No. I'm going to talk about the very next part, which is my favorite line in the entire movie. So, anyway, the scientist guy calls everybody together. "Come into my laboratory." And now we're going to have the big reveal as to why the monster cannot be destroyed by conventional weaponry. Yeah. Right? And it's very clear that whoever wrote this had just read the news like a week before and was like, "Oh, this looks like a sciencey term." So they go through this whole long explanation. And it turns out the bird is from another dimension. Yeah. Made of antimatter. And it has an antimatter shield which destroys matter upon impact. Yeah. It's got a deflector shield. It's got a deflector shield made of antimatter somehow. Yeah. And they've determined that it comes from another universe far away. And they make all these leaps in logic, right? And then one of the characters goes, "Is that really true?" And the scientist goes, "It's the only logical explanation."
Which is the science equivalent of, "Why not?" I got nothing. And I will say that is not an uncommon trope. I mean, the amount of time that something has become publicly, scientifically interesting, and it is dumbed down for a film. Like I've got a pen here, so I'm going to do this. We had the idea of warp drive for years, but then someone in science, I'm going to go with NASA, said, "What about folding space as an idea?" And all of a sudden we have Event Horizon made in 10 months after that, where the guy at the start goes, "Well, you take space and you fold it, and then you fly through the middle." If you've seen the film, you fly through the middle, explaining this to a bunch of people who have lived in the future for centuries, and all of a sudden you're there. Anyone who's seen the film will go, "Oh my God, yes." But the amount of films where that's done, some science has come out, and then within months later there's a film that leverages that bit of science. For no good reason.
And that's what it was. They had discovered antimatter as a concept, and they were like, "This bird." And I mean, they literally lay it out like this. I mean, all the explanations are these giant leaps in logic, but then they're like, "It's a bird from another dimension that uses an antimatter shield, and it came from space." And it was about a particular logical explanation.
It was about a particular type of molecule, atom, or something that I did mean to look up at the time because it was actually interesting, but I never got around to it. That if you do it a certain way or a certain frequency, we can get through the shield. And yeah,
that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, wow, that was the plan. That was him with his doing the science, then spending the next 15, 20 minutes of the film failing to do science in a small room and getting really sleepy.
Well, so they go through a whole bunch of other shenanigans. First of all, they realize that the bird must come to Earth to lay its egg.
Oh, yeah.
Which the eggs don't have antimatter shields.
No.
You can just shoot them with a rifle and
they
just explode. Right. So anyway, they realize that the bird must be nesting at Pierre's farm for some reason, and no one's realized this. But don't worry about it. It's cool.
It's relatively close, yeah.
Don't worry about it. It's cool. So they go back to Pierre's farm, and Pierre's like, reasonably, like, I don't want to go see the monster. And they're like, Pierre, be cool. And so,
but let's step one back. They forget his name and start calling him Peppy.
That's right. They did forget his name.
On the way over in the helicopter, we've got to go to Peppy's farm, and they call him Peppy for the rest of the film for some reason. Even to his face, I think. Come on, Peppy, where do you go, Peppy? It's like,
Peppy the farmer? No.
You're talking to me? Does it make you happy?
So Pepe, they shoot they find the egg very easily. Hardly a problem.
Large eggs, yeah. Which they shoot with a 22, which is like this big, and crack a hole in an egg, which is the size of, slightly smaller than a battleship. It takes out a chunk. Like, I mean, no, they're using elephant rifles or something, but still, it's there's a scale issue.
So the bird gets obviously upset, and Pepe.
I felt bad for the eggs. I've written it down here. I felt bad for the eggs. I think this is in the era of American films where it was totally okay to just shoot the lion that was attacking at someone rather than trying anything else. We're just going to kill the children because it's an evil bird. Because they're evil bird children. That's fine. Fine then.
At no point.
Yeah. Because in Star Trek, they'd just be up in space and go, "What? We use a tractor beam. What? Put them somewhere safe. It's fine now."
This was
even
also
old Star Trek.
This is also before the era where people were starting to try to save stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, "Oh, we need to study the killer whales instead of murdering them." It was still in that era of America.
Not kill the whale. No, I see. We got it wrong there. Yeah.
It was in that era where it was just like, this is a threat to mankind. Let's kill the hell out of it. So that was the mentality. So anyway, they shoot the egg. Pepe dies. Because I made a note that said, "Don't be their friend." When I saw that part, like that was my mental you're gonna die if you know them. Like,
you're the red shirts. Yeah,
I really feel bad for Pierre. Like he was such a sweet man, and they were treating him like, "Don't run, Pierre. Don't be a coward." I was like, he has the right idea.
But even his own house, like the military just turn up and start ignoring him, basically.
I know, it's like, poor Pierre. It was big news when they created an atom way back in the day. It was a bigger atom than what they were used to.
You can't make an atom, but they messed with atoms, yeah.
Yeah, they messed with atom, and they made it like, they developed one that had a bigger, whatever, it was the next step on the Pierre X. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to go into it because I don't understand it. But, so...
Nor did they.
Right. There was news that they had created an atom, and somehow this funny business was the exact thing to, I don't know, break the antimatter shield for some reason. Yeah. So again, this guy who had just read a newspaper was like, "Hey, they made a new atom.
This is a good idea.
This is a good idea." And then
maybe second atom.
Again, they give an explanation, but it makes no sense. But it was in your brain, you just got to go science and then move on.
Yeah.
And so,
well, that's what I mean by modern technobabble. At least what they were saying did sound like actual science, even though it was clearly abridged.
So this meathead guy then proceeds to invent technology that shouldn't exist in order to create these atoms. Yeah, and then shoot them at the giant bird. Which will,
and let's say he created the technology out of stuff they had on hand. And this isn't A-Team putting stuff together. This is making a significantly never made before apparatus out of stuff that just clearly happened to have at that particular site, which looked like an office.
And when the military asked him, "What do you need?" he was like, Me, my assistant, and an unlimited check. And you're just like, oh my god. Anyway, so and then they proceed to fly into the sky and shoot matter at the antimatter, and then science.
And then science
and then bird
happens.
dies.
Yeah.
With very limited explanation as to how any of it happens.
Or whether there'll be more of them, or,
Right. And the final scene is them just taking the model that they've been using the whole time and then just turning it upside down and dropping it in the water.
Throwing it in the water, yeah, slightly on fire. Yeah.
And you see the claw like, just...
We've got one go at this, guys. Don't screw it up. We're just going to throw it into a lake.